The fourth-ranked Miami Hurricanes win 26-7 over Florida to improve to 4-0 on the season, going into their first bye week before their first ACC game at Florida State. There's some big picture stuff that I definitely want to get into with what I've seen from this team 4 weeks into this season. But let's talk about tonight with what I saw, starting with the defense. Really impressive, holding Florida to 141 total yards, 0 for 13 on third downs, just one first down in the entire first half, 32 yards. So it was a really impressive performance by the defense, and I think a lot of units deserve credit for this. It wasn't one particular guy. Look, Ruben Bain is their best defensive player. He is playing at a high level each and every week. I said before the season he was the biggest key to this defense. But tonight, a lot of guys played well. You know, the linebackers, Mohamed Toure led this team in tackles with 10. Wesley Bissain had 8. And I mentioned going into it, I thought Bissain was going to have to be a key. These linebackers were going to be key in the run game, and I thought they did a great job of that. Florida did try to run the ball, but DJ Lagway wasn't able to throw it consistently at all or for any type of yards downfield. And the secondary did a great job. You saw Jacoby Thomas make a nice play in the backfield, but just the coverage was there. They didn't allow the deep ball. They didn't allow Florida to get these shots off, or they didn't make things difficult for them at all. And the defense, you're hearing it all the time right now with just their mentality, that excitement that they're playing with, and certainly playing with violence and swarming the ball, the ESV that they've talked about with Corey Heatherman's defense this year. And you're seeing it. You saw it tonight. You saw it play out. You saw it with the tackles for loss. These guys are really swarming to the ball. And they've done a great job of coming together. Look, this mix of defensive players that are returning, like Bain and Akeem Mesidor, kind of leading the way, and Torrey called them two of the pass rushers in the country. You've got those two guys leading the way, and then these other guys are just filling in their roles. These veteran guys that transferred in, and you saw it tonight. So I just thought it was really impressive because, look, this was a hungry Florida team. Bad start to the season, but a chance to get right, in a rivalry game. And maybe they could pull off the upset. Miami didn't let that happen at all. And defensively, they did such a great job of not allowing Florida to feel comfortable at all. And it was just really impressive with what I saw, and as you guys saw it too. So I think all the units, I think Corey Heatherman deserves credit, but certainly the leaders of these teams. Defensively, they're doing a good job of pass rush and really applying pressure, and those guys in the secondary are covering the ball downfield. So I think it's great with how the defense is played, and I think that's one of the reasons to be excited about this team moving forward. Because for me, look, I had question marks about this defense. I thought it'd be better than it was a year ago. I still think it is. But how much better? How much more improvement? Where are they going to be the most improved? What is it actually going to look like? And before, it was certainly becoming a weakness at times throughout the year, making it very difficult to win, although the offense was good. But this year, it's not even a point where it's to the point where, they have an adequate defense. This is a good defense with how they've played these first 4 games. Florida had a really hard time, and I know Florida's been struggling offensively, but they didn't get it going against Miami. Miami did a great job against USF as well. Notre Dame did get some points, with that 24 points, but Miami just did a good job in that game too defensively. So it's become a strength of this team, and that's something I didn't really see coming, and we'll see if that can continue moving forward. Okay, so flipping it to offense and kind of what I saw here. Look, great play by the running backs. Mark Fletcher, 116 yards and a touchdown, 24 carries. That was great. Shamar Brown goes for 80 yards and 2 scores. Kind of seals the deal there in the fourth quarter with that big long drive and hopping over the 1-yard line there into the end zone for a touchdown. And I thought the run game was really good and good against a team that had done a good job stopping the run. Florida comes into the game 23rd nationally, only allowing 87 rushing yards a game. Miami goes for over 180. So good to see from those backs, physical backs. And I saw them pick up runs up the middle, which you like to see, but also they could get outside a little bit. Mark Fletcher in particular, he was a guy that, certainly has embraced this lead role with Jordan Lyle out, and he missed his 3rd straight game here. But Brown and Fletcher, 4 carries over 10 yards, those 10-plus yard runs. You like to see that from a back like that. It's not just a guy that's getting you 3, 4, 5 yards. He's able to stretch it a little bit, and I think that's great. It's great seeing Mark play so well for this team, and certainly really important. But look, Marty Brown has showed that he has been able to not only make the transition from North Dakota State, at that FCS level, but play at a very good level here at Miami. He's been a key factor for this team a couple times now. So I think that's great. And with what I saw today, look, and Marty was catching the ball in the backfield. You don't see that very often out of him. But if that's going to be an added element for him the rest of the season, that's going to be big for this backfield as well. So the run game was really good, and they came up big in big moments in that fourth quarter in particular. Coming down to it, Miami's holding on to a 13-7 lead. They get the ball with a little over 11 minutes left, and they turn out this 13-play, 80-yard drive. 10 of those plays were runs by Fletcher or Brown, and they just did a really good job. They didn't face very many third downs, just 2, and one they scored on, and one was the 3rd and 1, picked it up with a Brown 6-yard run. So they did a really good job on that drive. The offensive line deserves a lot of credit. And what's great to see with this offensive line, with this running game, we saw it against Notre Dame, but they're coming through late in games and really kind of essentially looking like they're wearing down their opponents, and they came up big when they needed it. And look, Carson didn't have a great day at all. 17 of 30 for 160 and a pick, didn't throw a touchdown pass, but during that key drive that Miami got a touchdown on, he completed all 3 of his passes, goes for over 30 yards on those 3 passes. So he was good when they needed him as well. And then obviously Miami gets the turnover on downs, and they add another touchdown, so that's why it was 26-7. But the offense came up big in the fourth quarter, which I think was really good in a day where it didn't always look good. I think the Florida defense is a good defense. And just with the passing game, look, they're going to have to figure out ways to get passes downfield a little bit and be more efficient. I think it's going to be difficult at times against good defenses, or depending on how defenses play. I don't think it's just going to be an automatic that they're just going to rack up a bunch of passing yards each and every single game like we saw last year. Even though I believe in Carson Beck is going to have a good season, I just think it's going to look a little bit different, and this is what it can look like sometimes. I don't think you're going to see 160 yards, with the 1 interception, the sub-100 quarterback rating very often from Carson this year. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have another one the rest of the year. Look, in his previous 2 years at Georgia, he only had 2 of those games under 100. So I think he's going to be more efficient as the year goes on with different games. This one he wasn't. And look, there were different factors. I thought he was just a little bit either off target on some throws, either rushed on some throws, which I talked about going into the game. It's important that he does have a clean pocket, and he's just got to be a little bit more accurate. But also the wide receivers. Again, this is a group that still needs to be able to help him out some. And look, the stuff with the offensive line, particularly with James Brockemeyer at center with the snap infractions, that was difficult to see, and hopefully that's not going to be a trend moving forward. You don't see that call very often. You don't see that issue very often at all, but Brockemeyer's got to be better, and I think obviously he understands that. That's his big job as a center. So clean up some of those penalties, those 5-yard penalties, particularly there on the line that we saw a little bit. But look, I'm not expecting this to be Miami's offense moving forward. I think they are going to be able to score points. You're going to have games in the ACC where they are going to score over 30 points, although they didn't do it against Notre Dame or Florida in this one. Those are 2 really good defenses. With what I've seen in the ACC, I don't see them facing a lot of defenses like that, again, based on what I've seen from the ACC teams so far to start this year. So final thoughts. Again, good win for this team at 4-0. Offense, defense showed positive signs. They're a difficult team to go against, but now they go into a bye week. I think it's important to kind of find ways to get better, kind of relax a little bit in terms of their health, and kind of just understand that they have a big, long season ahead of them. They go at Florida State, paying attention to Florida State. And I think what should help Miami, even though they haven't played on the road yet, they've been playing in these big games against these good teams quite a bit already to start this year. And Florida State has shown that it is a good team as well. Miami knows what to expect going against an opponent like that. So I like that from Miami's perspective, but just making sure that they take advantage of the bye week and that they come back out strong and understand, which I think they have, this 1-0 mentality that Cristobal always talked about, but a lot of season still to go. The full ACC slate still to go. With 17 teams in the conference, you got to have there's not a lot of room for error, in the ACC to make sure you get to Charlotte, and certainly Miami at this point, they're looking like a team that wants to secure a playoff appearance as well. So a lot to still play for. So far, so good for the Hurricanes. They've showed a lot of positives, but definitely drop in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about tonight's game. I suspect a lot of people were a little bit concerned when it was 13-7. The offense, when it doesn't look great, there's always concern. But all I can remind you is, and this is the way I've been watching it, this defense was really impressive, and that should be a really positive sign moving forward. Playing really inspired defense, making it really difficult, swarming to the ball. I think that's big for just the overall mentality. So all the things that maybe you might have question marks about with what you saw offensively, they still put up 26 points. They still came out and made big plays and really got to it in the run game, over 180 yards. So still positives, even though the passing game was a little disappointing tonight. So definitely, again, let me know what you think of the game. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good rest of the weekend and take care.